Ambassador Lee Hanna walked into the massive council chamber, her black boots clicking against the polished floor. The room was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward the ceiling like a giant stadium. Hundreds of alien beings sat in those seats, all looking down at the small platform where she stood. Her heart beat fast, but she kept her face calm. She had done this many times before. Each time, she hoped things would be different. Each time, she was wrong. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I come before you today to present humanity's proposal for joint research in quantum field manipulation." A sound like metal scraping against stone came from the Zephyrian section. It was their way of laughing. Ambassador Hanna knew the sound well. She had heard it too many times. Counselor Vextar, a creature that looked like a giant mantis with 6 glowing eyes, raised one of his sharp arms. "The humans want to play with quantum fields now," he said in his buzzing voice. "How amusing. Perhaps they should learn to tie their shoes properly first." More sounds of alien laughter filled the chamber. Hanna felt her face grow warm, but she did not move. Behind her, Dr. Pargio was recording everything with his small device. He always came to these meetings. He always recorded the insults. The ethereal representative floated above her crystal seat like a ghost made of light. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Your species shows such enthusiasm," she said in a tone that made the word sound like an insult. "But enthusiasm cannot replace centuries of proper education." "We have made significant advances," Hanna said, pulling out her datapad. "Our scientists have solved the energy cascade problem that has puzzled researchers for decades. We would be happy to share our findings." "Share." The massive form of High Counselor Trek shifted in his stone seat. He was twice the size of a human, with skin like rock and eyes like burning coals. "What could humans possibly teach civilizations that mastered space travel before your species discovered fire?" Hanna touched her datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Complex equations and energy patterns danced in the air, showing breakthrough after breakthrough that human scientists had achieved. "These are our recent discoveries in quantum tunnel stabilization," she explained. "The applications for transportation and communication are—" "Impossible," interrupted Dr. Kethvar, the Council's chief science advisor. His blue skin rippled with patterns that showed his disbelief. "These calculations suggest efficiency rates that violate known physical laws." "That's what we thought, too," Hanna said, allowing herself a small smile. "Until we tested them." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the laughter began again, louder this time. It came from every section, every species. The sound echoed off the walls like thunder. "Humans and their imagination," chuckled the Alterian representative, her 3 heads nodding in unison. "So creative, so wrong." Counselor Vextar 6's eyes focused on Hanna like laser beams. "Your application for research partnership is denied," he announced, "as are all future applications until your species demonstrates proper scientific maturity." The words hit Hanna like a physical blow. She had expected them, but they still hurt. "Counselor, if you would just examine the data—" "The data is obviously flawed," Dr. Kedvar said with a wave of his tentacled arm. "Humans always make calculation errors. It is a known limitation of your primitive neural structure." "Primitive neural structure?" Dr. Park Jiho spoke for the first time, his voice sharp with anger. "Our primitive brain solved problems your advanced civilizations couldn't even understand." "Ah, the pet speaks," said High Counselor Drac, his burning eyes turning toward Jiho. "How entertaining." The word pet hung in the air like poison. Hanna saw Jiho's hands clench into fists. She put a gentle hand on his arm, warning him to stay calm. "If that will be all," Counselor Vextar continued, "we have important matters to discuss. Real science, performed by real civilizations." As Hanna and Jiho walked out of the chamber, they could hear the aliens already moving on to other business. Their proposal, months of work by humanity's best minds, had been dismissed in less than 10 minutes. Outside, in the corridor, Jiho finally spoke. 23 years, he said quietly. 23 years of this." "I know," Hannah replied, looking back at the massive doors that had just closed behind them. But we have to keep trying. Do we? Geo asked. He looked tired, older than his 40 years. Maybe it's time to stop begging for their approval. Far away, on the edge of human space, engineer Kim Deo was putting the finishing touches on his latest creation. The quantum tunnel drive hummed with impossible energy, ready to change everything. He didn't care what the council thought. He had work to do. The galaxy was about to learn that being ignored could be a blessing in disguise. Ambassador Song Mira sat in her office, staring at a thick folder that had grown heavier each year. Inside were 23 years of documented insults, ignored warnings, and broken promises. Her predecessor, Lee Hannah, had started this file. Now it was Myra's burden to carry. The latest entry made her stomach twist with anger. 3 months ago, Dr. Yoon Taemin had burst into her office with wild eyes and trembling hands. His team had discovered something terrible. A massive asteroid, hidden in the shadow of a dying star, was racing toward the Nexary homeworld. The impact would happen in exactly 97 days. We have to warn them, Taemin had said, spreading his calculations across her desk. 14 million people will die if that rock hits. Mira had immediately sent urgent messages to the council. Emergency priority. Lives at stake. Please respond immediately. The first reply came 3 weeks later. A form letter thanking her for her concern and assuring her that proper authorities would review the matter. She sent more messages. More urgent pleas. She even tried to contact individual council members directly. Most never responded. Those who did sent polite notes explaining that human emotional reactions often led to false alarms. Your species has a tendency toward panic, wrote Dr. Kethvar, the council science advisor. We cannot waste resources chasing every shadow that frightens you. Taemin worked day and night, refining his calculations, checking and double-checking his work. The math was perfect. The asteroid would hit. Millions would die. 50 days before impact, Mira received a message from Counselor Vextar himself. The human predictions have been reviewed by qualified scientists, it read. No credible threat has been identified. Please refrain from further disruptions. 40 days, 30 days, 20 days. On the day of impact, Mira sat in her office and watched the news feeds. The asteroid struck the Nexary homeworld exactly where Taemin had predicted, at exactly the time he had calculated. The images were horrific. Cities vanished in balls of fire. Tidal waves swept across continents. The death toll climbed minute by minute. 14,200,000 Nexary died. The rescue ships arrived within hours. Not council ships, but human vessels. Captain M. Juno led a fleet of medical ships equipped with the latest technology developed by Dr. Shin Hyri's team. Her revolutionary biofoam could seal wounds instantly. Her portable life support pods could keep severely injured beings alive for days. The human medical teams worked without rest. They pulled survivors from the wreckage with mechanical arms that could lift tons but handle an injured child with perfect gentleness. Their emergency shelters deployed in minutes, providing warmth and safety for thousands of refugees. How did you know to come? Asked a Nexary rescue worker, her blue skin covered in dust and tears. We've been trying to warn everyone for months, replied Dr. Hyrie, not looking up from the patient she was treating. No one listened. The human ship saved over 3 million lives in the first week. Their medical technology, dismissed by the council as crude but functional, proved more effective than anything the advanced civilizations possessed. 2 weeks after the disaster, the council held a memorial service. Mira attended, hoping finally to see some acknowledgement of human efforts. High Counselor Drax stood at the podium, his massive form casting shadows across the assembled crowd. The Galactic Council responded swiftly to this tragedy, he announced. Our rapid deployment of resources saved countless lives. Mira felt her blood turn cold. Not a single word about the human warnings. Not one mention of the human rescue teams who had actually done the saving. The Council's advanced medical technology and superior coordination prevented an even greater catastrophe, Daytrack continued. This tragedy reminds us why experienced civilizations must guide younger species through such crises. In the official report, humanity was mentioned once. At the bottom of page 47, human vessels provided auxiliary support during recovery operations. Auxiliary support. 3 million lives saved, and they call it auxiliary support. Captain M. Juno found Mira after the ceremony. His usually calm face was twisted with rage. "Did you hear that?" he asked through clenched teeth. "Auxiliary support?" "I heard," Mira replied quietly. "We warned them," he said, his voice rising. "We begged them to listen. Then we saved millions of lives with our primitive technology, and they call it auxiliary support." Around them, other human delegates were having similar conversations. Dr. Hyrie threw a medal of commendation into a trash bin. "They gave me this for assisting the rescue," she said bitterly, "as if I was just handing tools to the real doctors." That night, Mira added a new entry to the file, not just about the ignored warnings or the stolen credit. She wrote about something else she had noticed. The human rescue technology had been far superior to anything the Council possessed. The quantum tunnel drives had allowed instant travel across the galaxy. The medical equipment had capabilities that amazed even veteran alien doctors. Humanity wasn't just being ignored anymore. They were being surpassed by their own creations while the Council remained stuck in ancient ways. The file was getting very thick now. Soon, someone would have to decide what to do with all these grievances. That someone would be President Nam Sujin, and she was already making plans. The alarm bells screamed across every Council world at the same time. Deep in space, something ancient and terrible had awakened. The Andromedan Defense Grid, a massive network of automated weapons built by a long-dead civilization, had suddenly come online after sleeping for 10,000 years. Dr. Cho Min watched the emergency broadcast from her laboratory on Mars. The grid's energy beams were already sweeping across inhabited systems, turning planets into lifeless rocks. The automated voice repeated the same message in a dead language. Cleansing protocols activated. All biological life will be eliminated. "How long do we have?" asked her assistant, Kim Young-ho, his face pale as he read the tactical reports. 3 weeks before it reaches the core worlds," Minnie replied, her fingers flying across the holographic displays. "Maybe less." The Council was in complete panic. Their most powerful weapons couldn't even scratch the ancient defense platforms. Their best scientists had no idea how to shut down technology that predated their civilizations by millennia. But Minnie had an idea. She had been working on quantum shielding technology for 5 years. The shields could wrap around entire planets, creating barriers that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Nothing could penetrate them. Not energy beams, not projectiles, not even gravity itself. "Contact Ambassador Song Mira," she told Young-ho. "Tell her we have a solution." Within hours, President Nam Sujin was standing in Minhee's laboratory, studying the swirling energy patterns of the prototype shield generator. Her dark eyes reflected the blue glow of the quantum fields. "This can protect whole worlds?" Sujin asked. "Entire star systems if we build enough generators," Minnie confirmed. "The mathematics are solid. We've tested it on smaller scales. It works." Sujin nodded slowly. "Send the data to the Council. Full specifications. Everything they need to build their own." Ambassador Song Mira transmitted humanity's offer to the Council within the hour. Complete quantum shielding technology, freely shared, capable of protecting billions of lives from the approaching death machines. The response came faster than usual. An emergency session of the full Council broadcast across the galaxy. High Counselor Tadrak's burning eyes filled the massive screen as he addressed the assembled representatives. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "The human proposal has been reviewed," he announced. "This quantum shielding technology is far too dangerous to remain in the hands of a juvenile species." President Sujin felt her blood freeze. She was watching the broadcast from her office on Earth, surrounded by her closest advisors. "Too dangerous?" she whispered. Tadrak continued, his rocky face showing no emotion. "Such powerful technology could be weaponized, could destabilize the galactic balance of power. The Council has voted unanimously. Humanity will immediately transfer all research data, prototypes, and personnel to proper Council oversight. The chamber erupted in agreement. Alien voices chittered and buzzed their approval of this wise decision. And if we refuse? Ambassador Mira asked from her seat in the gallery. Counselor Vextar's 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Then you will face the consequences of defying galactic order. Let me understand this, Mira said, standing slowly. Our people developed this technology. Our scientists solved problems you couldn't even approach. And now you want to simply take it. For the greater good, replied Dr. Kethvar, his blue skin rippling with righteous patterns. Advanced civilizations must guide younger species. It is the natural order. Natural order? Captain M. Juno's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. He had arrived with the latest refugee reports from the outer systems. While you debate ownership, the death machines are burning worlds. People are dying, which is why this technology must be properly managed. Tadrak said dismissively, by those with the wisdom to use it correctly. The vote was swift and brutal. Economic sanctions, trade embargoes, travel restrictions. Human diplomats would be expelled. Human trade routes would be closed. Human colonies would be cut off from galactic commerce. The message was crystal clear. Give us everything or we will strangle you. President Sujin watched the broadcast end in stunned silence. Around her, the leadership of humanity sat frozen in disbelief. They're going to let billions die, said Defense Minister Park Junho, his voice hollow. Rather than let us help, they'll let entire civilizations burn. Because they can't stand the idea that we might be better at something, added Dr. Shinhiri, who had joined them after the Nexuri rescue mission. Their pride is worth more than lives. Sujin stood and walked to the window overlooking the sprawling city below. Earth looked peaceful from here, but she knew that peace was ending. Madam President? Asked Admiral Kong Wu-jin quietly. What are your orders? Sujin turned back to face the room. Her expression had changed. Gone was the diplomatic smile she usually wore. In its place was something harder, colder. Call an emergency session of the Colonial Parliament, she said. Every human world, every colony, every settlement. I want full representation. What are you planning? Asked Park Junho. Sujin looked at the screen where the council members were still congratulating themselves on their wise decision. Worlds were burning, and they cared more about control than salvation. I'm planning to give them exactly what they want, she said quietly. A galaxy without human interference. The vote would be unanimous. Humanity was leaving. The laughter in the council chamber was loud and cruel. Counselor Vextar's 6 eyes sparkled with amusement as Ambassador Bei Seojun read humanity's formal withdrawal notice from the galactic community. Let me understand this correctly, Vextar said, his voice dripping with mockery. The humans are leaving? Where exactly do you primitives think you will go? The other council members joined in the laughter. The ethereal representative's ghostly form shimmered with what looked like joy. High Counselor Tadrak's massive shoulders shook as he chuckled. The sound like rocks grinding together. Beyond council space lies nothing but empty void and savage worlds, declared the Altrian delegate, her 3 heads nodding in unison. You will come crawling back within a year, begging for readmission. Ambassador Bei stood perfectly still at the podium, his face calm and expressionless. Behind him, Captain Kong Wu-jin watched from the observation gallery, a small smile playing at his lips. If these aliens only knew what was coming. The withdrawal will begin immediately, Bei said quietly. All human colonies, research stations, and diplomatic posts will be evacuated within 6 months. 6 months? Dr. Kethvar's blue skin rippled with disbelief. Impossible. It would take years to move entire populations across such distances. Your primitive ships simply cannot. His words died as reports began flooding into the council chambers. Emergency communications from across the galaxy, all saying the same impossible thing. Human ships were appearing everywhere at once. On the mining world of Kepler, 442 massive vessels materialized in orbit without warning. They had no engine signatures, no energy trails. They simply existed where nothing had been moments before. "How did they get here so fast?" asked the station commander, a Zephyrian whose wings were trembling with confusion. The human evacuation teams worked with incredible efficiency. Entire cities were packed and loaded in hours. Families, belongings, equipment, even the family pets. Everything disappeared into the cargo holds of ships that seemed far too small to contain so much. Dr. Li Gaong supervised the loading on New Shanghai Colony. Her quantum tunnel drives had made this miracle possible. The technology that the Council had declared theoretically unsound was now moving millions of people across impossible distances in the blink of an eye. "Where are you taking them?" asked a curious Nexri observer, one of the survivors from the asteroid disaster. "Somewhere better," Gaon replied simply. The destinations would have amazed the Council if they had known. Beyond their borders, in dimensions they had never explored, lay civilizations that welcomed humanity with open arms. The Verdani were plant-like beings who lived in symbiosis with their forest worlds. When human ships arrived in their space, the Verdani leaders emerged from their great trees to greet them. "We have watched the Council's treatment of your species," spoke Elder Root Singer, her voice like wind through leaves. "You offered partnership. They demanded submission. Here we offer true cooperation." The digital collective known as a Harmony existed as pure information, living within quantum computer networks. They had been isolated for centuries, dismissed by the Council as artificial life, unworthy of recognition. "Your species thinks in ways that complement our own," transmitted the Harmony speakers. "Together, we can achieve wonders neither could accomplish alone." The energy beings of the void reaches had been completely unknown to the Council. They existed between dimensions, invisible to conventional sensors. Only human quantum technology could detect them. "We have waited long for minds that perceive us," whispered the Eternal Current, their voice like music made of light. "Your people see possibilities where others see only emptiness." Each new alliance brought new technology, new perspectives, new solutions to problems the Council had considered unsolvable. The Verdani shared biological sciences that could heal any wound. The Harmony offered computational power that could simulate entire universes. The Eternal Current revealed energy sources that made fusion look like a candle flame. Back in Council space, the evacuation continued with impossible speed. Engineer Ryu Min-jae stood on the observation deck of the last human research station, watching her teams load decades of scientific work into quantum storage units. "The Council wanted our technology," she said to her assistant. "Now they'll get to see what happens without it." The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Human engineering had been quietly essential to Council infrastructure for decades. Power grids that humans had optimized began failing. Transportation networks that relied on human innovations ground to a halt. Medical systems that incorporated human breakthroughs stopped working. "Why are the fusion reactors shutting down?" demanded Councilor Vextar as his homeworld experienced its first power outage in centuries. "The human modifications to the containment systems," his chief engineer replied nervously. "Without their maintenance protocols, the reactors are automatically shutting down for safety." Similar reports poured in from across Council space. Systems failing, infrastructure crumbling, solutions vanishing along with the humans who had created them. The last human to leave Council space was Ambassador Bae Sojun. He stood alone on the empty human embassy, recording a final message. "You asked where we would go," he said to the camera. "The answer is everywhere you never looked. You control the galaxy you knew, but the universe is far larger than your imagination." He paused, looking around the empty halls where humanity had pleaded for acceptance for so many years. "You wanted to treat us as children. Now you'll learn to survive without us." The message ended. The embassy went dark. Humanity was gone. 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council chambers looked like a tomb. Half the seats sat empty as member civilizations dealt with cascading crises across their worlds. The great crystal dome that had once sparkled with the light of 1,000 suns now flickered with failing power systems. Councilor Vextar stared at his trembling hands. His homeworld had been without reliable power for 6 months. The fusion reactors that had run perfectly for centuries were now unstable, shutting down randomly. His engineers had tried everything, but they couldn't replicate the human modifications that had kept the systems running smoothly. Status report, he said weakly to the nearly empty chamber. Dr. Kethvar's blue skin had turned a sickly gray color. The medical crisis continues to spread, he reported. The plague on Sigma Draconis has killed 12 million. The cure that human researchers developed 3 years ago, we cannot reproduce it. What about the infrastructure failures? Asked High Counselor Drac, though his voice lacked its usual commanding strength. Getting worse, replied the Altrian representative. Only 1 or 3 heads still functioning properly. Transportation networks are failing across 17 systems. The quantum routing algorithms that humans designed, we never learned how they worked. The ethereal delegate floated silently above her crystal seat, her ghostly form flickering like a dying light. She had not spoken in months. Her people's energy systems, secretly dependent on human innovations, were slowly burning out. Perhaps, Vextar said quietly, we should attempt to contact them. The words hung in the air like a confession of failure. For 2 years, they had been too proud to admit they needed the humans back. Now, with their civilizations crumbling around them, pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. The communications array hummed to life, its ancient system straining to penetrate the quantum void where humanity had vanished. They sent message after message into the emptiness, each one more desperate than the last. This is a Galactic Council calling all human vessels. We request immediate dialogue regarding mutual cooperation, emergency transmission to human leadership. Critical situations require your expertise. Please respond. We are willing to discuss new partnership terms. Only silence answered them. On the 3rd day of their attempts, something finally came through the static. But it wasn't the response they had hoped for. It was an old message, recorded years ago but never sent. Ambassador Lee Hanna's face appeared on the main screen, her expression calm but her eyes filled with sadness. If you are receiving this message, she began, it means you have finally realized what you lost when you chose arrogance over cooperation. The council members leaned forward in their seats, desperate to hear every word. For generations, we offered our partnership freely. We shared our innovations without asking for payment. We solved your problems and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. Vexstar's 6 eyes focused on the screen, as if he could will the image to become real, to become someone he could negotiate with. Instead, you saw us as inferior. You treated us like children playing with toys. You demanded our discoveries while refusing to acknowledge our intelligence. Dr. Kethvar's tentacles writhed with guilt. He remembered dismissing human research as obviously flawed, without ever bothering to study it properly. You had 1,000 chances to treat us as equals. Every ignored warning was a choice. Every dismissed proposal was a decision. Every insult was a step toward this moment. The message continued, and with each word, the council members felt the weight of their mistakes pressing down on them. Now you face the future you built for yourselves. A galaxy where advanced civilizations must solve their own problems, instead of relying on the ingenuity of those they considered primitive. The transmission flickered, and for a moment, they thought it was over. Then Hannah's image stabilized, and her final words cut through them like ice. We found what we were looking for beyond your borders. Species that value cooperation over domination. Civilizations that see differences as strengths instead of weaknesses. A future built on mutual respect instead of ancient prejudices. The screen went dark, leaving the council in stunned silence. But the universe wasn't finished showing them their failure. Reports began arriving from the outer reaches of known space. Scout ships brought back impossible stories of thriving human colonies, in dimensions the council had never imagined existed. The images were stunning. Cities that floated between stars, powered by energy sources that made their technology look primitive. Humans working alongside species they had never encountered, solving problems together that neither could tackle alone. They're building an interdimensional confederation, whispered a terrified scout pilot. Hundreds of species, all working together. Their technology, it's beyond anything we ever dreamed possible. President Nam Sujin appeared one final time on their screens, standing in what looked like a vast garden that somehow existed in the emptiness of space. Beside her stood representatives of dozens of alien species, all of them equal partners in humanity's new alliance. "We offered you the stars," she said simply. "You want to keep us in the dirt. Now you can have your galaxy. We found something better." The transmission ended, leaving the council alone with the wreckage of their once great civilization. Counselor Vextar looked around the empty chamber, finally understanding the terrible cost of their arrogance. They had ruled the galaxy by keeping others small. Now they were learning what it felt like to be abandoned by those they had underestimated. Outside, their worlds grew darker each day.